For this video, we'll be showing you how to mix some primary colors and combining them with transparent base in order to make optically mixed colors. So when you're choosing colors to use as your primaries, the best yellow to use is a Hansa yellow. It's closest to a process yellow. For the blue, the best blue that gives you the best range of greens and purples when you mix them with other primaries would be the phthalo blue. So that's a slightly greenish blue. And in 4-color process printing, they call that cyan. You also need a little bit of transparent base because the colors are too powerful on their own, and the blue can easily overwhelm the yellow if you're not diluting the blue a little bit. Sometimes I will print the yellow full strength, but I would print it first and then print the more transparent colors over top of that. When you're choosing the red, you actually get the best purple and the best oranges. Well, actually the best purples if you use slightly a magenta red instead of a stop sign red. This one I think is called crimson, and it tends to be a little bit more orangey. It makes beautiful oranges, but it makes a really muddy purple. So if you've got a choice and you have to choose only one red to use, you want to find one that's closer to a magenta. So that again would match the process colors that they would use in commercial printing. So a slightly more purpley red. There's a quinacridone magenta, and there's also a quinacridone violet. You would want to choose the quinacridone magenta. Alright, but today we're just going to focus on making a green, so we're leaving the red out of the picture. I've already got my template, my printing template with my paper attached to the back. That's the paper size that I'll be printing on. This black marks where my printing plate will go, and I've also marked off an image area so that we print the ink. We only ink the center section of this plate just to make it a little bit easier and to avoid getting our fingerprints all over the edges of the plate. So we're going to work a little bit smaller than the plate size. And I'll be mixing up, I think I'll print I'm kind of debating. I think I'm going to print, why don't we print a strong yellow first, and I will still add a little bit of transparent base to the yellow so that it's not quite so intense and lets a little bit more of the white of the paper show through. But it will be, let's say 3 parts yellow and maybe just 1 part transparent base. So we won't need very much of this. I'm just going to put a little dab out there. And we will add a little bit of transparent base as well. So if the colors ever settle where you've got all the pigment at the bottom and you've got the clear soy oil at the top, be sure to stir them up well before you put the inks out. And then a little bit of transparent base. Ooh. This almost looks like honey that's been starting to thicken. So I'll pull a little bit out here. Maybe I'll do closer to half and half. So just a little dab of each kind. I'm going to mix it on the palette before I start rolling it out so that the ink is not streaky. So try to mix in the transparent base before you start spreading it out. This might even be a little more ink than I need, so for now I'm going to put the excess at the top here, and we'll just spread out that part. And we're using our speedball roller. Again, to get it to spread, you might be sure to lift the roller up several times. Let's do a little bit of an experiment. Right now we've got a little bit of transparent base mixed in all of this color. I think what I'm going to do is choose half of this area and add a more intense yellow. So let's go in with a little bit more pure yellow just on one half of this, and we'll have to try to keep track of which half we've done. But so this second part should be a little bit more intense. And I'll roll it out again in several directions so that we get a nice even coat on the roller before we go over to the plate. So I'm going to just choose maybe the right half of the block to go a little bit more intense so that we can compare how the difference between transparent base versus the more intense color. So we have a little more vibrant yellow. You can see it is a little bit stronger on this side, a little more diluted on this side. And at this point you would be either wiping up the excess ink around the borders or stenciling it out with strips of paper. I'm going to try this version. I just made a little template out of that transparent film paper. It's a little bit flimsier than our inking or our template protector. And I'm going to lay this on. I'm going to see if I can just tape it right to, I'm not going to tape it to the printing plate, but I'm going to tape it out here to the template protector plate. So I'm just going to make a little hinge with some artist tape. If you have the blue painter's tape, that works great too. But that way we should be able to flip it out of the way and then reposition it for our next color, since we'll be printing two colors on top of each other. So we're not mixing those secondary colors on the ink slab, we're going to let them mix on the paper. So our right side of the image, and actually when we flip it over it'll end up being on the left side of the image, is going to be a little bit more vibrant yellow. So I'm going to try some pressure variation as well. We're going to test a few things on this exercise. So I'm lining up the bottom edge of the washi paper, and then we'll gently drop it into place. I think I'll tape it down so I can kind of see how the image is coming along as we're printing, in case we need to get it back in the same place. Just do a little bit of artist tape there, holding the printing paper down. And we can peek a little bit. See how, oh, okay, I actually put this ink on pretty heavily, so even without much rubbing, we're getting a fair amount of image transferring. So I'm going to do a pretty light touch to start with, and then maybe we'll do a few areas where we rub a little bit harder to try to get an even more vibrant color. So I think what I'll do is on just the farthest right corner, I'm going to go over it with a piece of mat board and just press as hard as I can to see if we can get an even darker value on that side. So remember to use that burnishing paper to protect the paper from ripping, and we can see if we can go, okay, it's pretty bright, and then it's going to a pretty light yellow, so I'm not going to rub too much over here. I'd like to see if that makes a difference in the kind of greens that we get. So for now I'm just going to leave it hinged. Let's see if I can just leave the paper attached so that I don't have to reposition it in exactly the same spot. I'm also going to flap our little frame out of the way, and then I'll just clean this off, clean the yellow off with a piece of newspaper. There's not a whole lot of ink left on there. I should be able to get most of the residue off without taking it to the sink. So I'll wipe with a dry paper towel first, and then you could either spritz a little bit of cleaner on the same rag and go over it one more time with a little bit of soapy water, or if you want to use a baby wipe, that's a really handy thing to do at this point. So I'll just put a little bit of cleaner on there and try to get the rest of the yellow off this plate. And then dry it off. You don't want a lot of soap bubbles on there. Alright, so we're ready to move on to our blue ink now. If you just have the one roller, you'll need to go, clean off the roller on some newsprint, soap it up, get it clean and dry, and then we're going to switch to the blue. I've got a spare roller, so to save a little time on the video, I'm just going to pull this one out of the way and bring in another little inking. So we'll put the yellow away and we'll switch to the blue now. I think I'll do the same thing where I make one part of the plate the darker blue, and then we'll make a more diluted blue for the other part. So we'll start Why don't we start with the full strength blue this time? Clean off my putty knife really well so I'm not turning the whole jar of blue ink green. And yeah, let's just start with the full strength blue first. This might overwhelm the yellow. We might not even be able to see much of the yellow through this, but it's good to experiment and see what happens. So quite dense blue. Save any excess. Remember to lift up the roller. I notice it's much thicker on this side, so I'll try to redistribute the ink so it's a little bit more even. So this time, instead of doing the dark to the same side that we did it before, I think I'm going to run the colors the opposite way. So we're going to put the really intense blue at the bottom, full strength blue, and then we'll add a little bit more transparent base as we move up the block. So I'm not even going to worry too much about cleaning the yellow ink off of my little frame stencil thing. Shouldn't interfere with the image at all. So I've got the intense blue at the bottom, and then I think I'll just add a little bit of transparent base, what we've already got here, and mix it around a little bit more. So we'll do a little bit of transparent base kind of toward the middle. I'm going to kind of scrape up the extra ink that we've got here, mix it around a little bit more with the transparent base, and then spread it out again. So there's still a little bit of full strength ink on the roller. That's not a big deal. We're going to be mixing in more transparent base, so it should appear a little bit more sheer, more of a tint, because the white of the paper will show through a little bit more, even though we didn't add white. This is still a pretty thin layer of ink. There's a little bit of a texture on there, but it shouldn't be so thick that it's slurping or that it looks like a really thick orange peel texture. So I'm going to add this ink in the middle. You can tell on the plate that it's a little bit more transparent. And then we'll do some at the very top that has even more transparent base added to it. So we'll go back in, grab a little bit more transparent base, and mix that in with the ink that's left. I'm kind of scraping off the ink as I'm adding the transparent base to it. And if you feel like you've gotten too much ink, just scrape some of it off, set it off to the side so that you don't over ink the plate. So this has quite a bit of transparent base in it now compared to our first layer of blue. And we're going to bring this in at the very top of the block. So there should be a little bit more sheer in the middle area. And I think I'll just kind of feather it down this lower area so you can kind of see the difference there. Alright, clean my fingers off a little bit so I don't get ink on the edges of my paper. And then first we'll put our little protective frame back over to help keep ink from getting in the borders of our paper. Make sure there's no wrinkles in that. And then we'll bring our printing paper back down. Since it's been hinged on there, it should lay down in almost exactly the same spot. And we'll just kind of gently press these colors. There's some little wrinkles in the paper that may actually affect, and if there's any little specks of dust or anything on there, you might get these little weird kind of halo marks there. So this is just really light pressure. I'm barely touching with my fingers. It was a thin layer of ink. So we've got this kind of speckled texture. I'm going to go over some areas with a little bit more pressure even so that we can see if we can get a range of green tones and not have all the greens be the same shade. So like we did for that previous one, I'm going to choose some areas, press a little bit harder. I think instead of just pressing hard on the bottom areas, I'm going to do more of a drawing texture and see what we get. So I'm burnishing with this scrap of mat board, but I'm doing it in kind of a random linear pattern instead of using the side of it to create a value. So So we should get some slightly darker marks on top of the basic green colors. Yeah, it's pretty subtle, but we can see that. And then maybe on this side, I'll rub a little bit harder too. This is the area that had more of the intense yellow, so we might get a little bit different shades of green on this side because more of that yellow should be showing through now. Okay. So we'll peel that off and just kind of show you what we've got. And we might use this, I mean, right now this doesn't feel like it's a finished image, it's just kind of a blend of tones, but it might be nice later to use as a layer of our chine collé. Let me get a white piece of paper under there so we can see the colors a little bit better against the light surface. So we've got some pretty vibrant yellow greens on this side, and then this is the side that had the more diluted yellow, so the blue is overwhelming this side a little bit more, and it turns into more of a like a, I don't know, turquoise kind of color on that side. And then these little specks are areas that I must have had a little bit of crud or dust or something in the ink, and so little specks, I see little black specks in the middle, or it would be dark blue, and then when I was burnishing the blue plate, I wasn't able to press down onto the yellow there, so that's what those speckles are for. I would suggest, even if you get an image like this that you're not that excited about, save all of these pieces of paper, because we're going to be later cutting some of these shapes out and gluing them onto other prints to create some interesting shapes and textures. So don't throw anything away, even if you're not feeling like it's a resolved image. We're going to use some of these a little bit later. And what we could do is even like print up, let's say we roll up a black plate or a red plate and use this sort of as a background, and then we can trace transfer on top of that. So maybe that's what we'll do next. I'll stop for now, but I'll save this for a future project.